Hello and welcome back to Objective Truth. I'm Nissa.
And I'm Caleb.
And we are going to be discussing a somewhat philosophical topic this evening, but we're going to try to keep it a little on the lighter side. We probably are going to reference some philosophers here and there. And
no, I want it on the dark side, like Star Wars.
All right, so we might present two different sides of this topic here this evening. But we're
gonna... Or like your toast. I don't know.
That's true. Like, I like lighter toast. He likes crispy.
Definitely not black coffee though. I don't dark black coffee. Can't handle that stuff. Nope.
Too strong for you?
Too nasty. Definitely like my coffee a lot lighter.
Like it blonde. So everybody thinks he's a redhead.
Yes, it's because I'm always wearing a hat, but I'm actually
blonde.
Blonde and bald. But
oh, what are we talking about? Moral relativism. The discussion topic this evening is going to be relativism versus reality, or reality versus relativity. Relativity, relativism. We're going to probably use those words interchangeably. We are obviously going to come from the standpoint of objective truth. So we believe in objective morality. We believe there are standards of morality, and we have several reasons why. We're going to communicate those as best that we can. Let us know in the comments if we don't explain something properly, or if we don't really go into something as much as you would like us to. We could sit and discuss this kind of topic for hours, but we're going to try to condense it a little bit into something that's more manageable for YouTube.
And hopefully not repeat ourselves too much.
Right. So
this is one of our first segments, so bear with us. We will learn, and it comes with practice. So
basically, as a jumping off point, again, I'm going to define some terms here. Reality. We use the word reality, and that means the world and the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them. So, when speaking about reality, we can look at it, that wooden chair, it's a wooden chair. It's not a swan. No matter how badly I want it to be a swan, it's not a swan. No matter how badly I want to live in a 3,500 square foot house with 7 bedrooms and 2 kitchens, I don't. That's just not reality. And we're kind of living in a society where reality is being twisted.
Yeah.
People are trying to say, well, it's my truth. We do not subscribe to that philosophy.
Not even a little bit.
No. There is no my truth, your truth, his truth, her truth, their truth, our truth. There is truth. Objective truth. And we see the objectivity of moral standards in reality.
Yeah.
So do you want to kick us off on?
Well, first, I guess let's discuss a little bit of history of where moral relativity really got a foothold in society and in the world in general. So firstly, the idea of moral relativity, I guess, came from ancient Greece. Is the earliest recording of what that philosophy or where that philosophy came from. So everybody in general knows who Socrates is. I would assume. And if you don't,
I think they still teach about Socrates in schools.
I would hope so.
Not really sure these days.
He was a very smart man, actually. He was
indeed.
He was one of my. I love philosophy. I love reading. Especially ancient Greece stuff. I'm a deep thinker. So.
He's smarter than me.
No, not even close. But maybe on some things, but I loved ancient Greece I loved studying Greek mythology when I was younger, and I still do to a degree. And Greek philosophy and all that, because I'm a thinker, so I like all that kind of stuff. It just interests me. But Socrates is one of my favorite uh, Greek philosophers for several reasons. He was a morally upright man. No, he wasn't a Christian. No, he was not. Because back then it wasn't even uh, Christianity didn't even exist at that time. But of course, you had Israel and God's chosen people at the time. But but he was a morally upright man, and what he believed, even with his how would you say, higher standard of thinking and philosophy for that time, for that age, he still believed in moral absolutes. He still believed that you could define morality, find what basically the rules were, and follow them if we so chose. But he was fighting an opposing viewpoint on and some term that some people might not be so familiar with as sophism. And I think we were talking about Protagoras.
Protagoras, yes.
Protagoras, who really introduced one of the earliest philosophers to introduce moral relativism.
Yeah.
And basically, what they believed was ultimately man. Well, how did you say it? Man is the
measure of all things.
Yes, man is the measure of all things.
I believe I'm quoting that correctly.
But the basic belief was that from that philosophy was that how would I put this? All morals at the time were from human experience or human knowledge. Something that it was basically like a almost like you if you break it down to like a trial and error type of deal.
It was kind of like a group think. Everybody sort of combined their ideas and their experiences to try to accumulate the best form of morality.
Right. Which in and of itself, I mean, when you break that type of philosophy down, it falls apart easily because it's fallacious. But am I using that word correctly? I'm going to try to sound fancy sometimes, and sometimes
Possibly.
I'll epically fail.
I'm going to look up the definition because I actually am not sure.
That's okay. So it breaks down real easily because if man is the measure of all things, and you have yes. Oh, I did. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm very impressed with myself. So, if man is the measure of all things, and they use this ideal to, or this idea rather, to trial and error, find the best possible belief or solution for modern problems, modern culture or society. They found things that worked and things that didn't work. But at the end of the day, there's still a cause and effect law that's in place. And when you have a law, like a basic law, like gravity is a law, cause and effect. We live in a universe that exists on cause and effect. So that philosophy kind of breaks down real quick when if the man is measure of all things, then who wrote the cause and effect law? Why is for instance, why is order and rule and what we would say is good, even in a moral relative sense, why is that any better than what we would call evil or what we would call why is it better? When you break it down, there's no logical answer. It's an illogical philosophy. So,
and you also have this problem with moral relativity when everyone has their own idea of what's moral, what's good, what's right. There's what is that saying? Too many something spoil the something. I can't think of what that is.
I got nothing. I know. I know.
I
can't think of it.
Brain just completely lost that train of thought. But most moral relativists hold to this thought that there is a universal law of tolerance. But yet, they do not hold to an idea or a thought or a belief that there is a universal law of morality. So why is it that they can say, yes, there is a universal law of tolerance, but no, there is not a universal standard of morality? You can't really have it both ways. You can't say that there is a universal law of something here and not here. Tolerance in and of itself is actually part of morality. So there is not a way for them to hold on to this one thing and say, oh yes, absolutely, that is an absolute.
Too many cooks spoil the broth?
Yes, that's
is that what it is?
Yes,
okay, gotcha.
Thank you. Too many cooks spoil the broth, because when you have so many different people putting their thoughts into, well, this is what I find moral, this is what I find moral, you're going to have too much butting of heads. You're going to have too many concepts coming together that do not agree with each other and therefore cannot be cohesive.
Yeah.
A society cannot function that way. A society cannot have longevity. It cannot have health if there are too many people who are putting their hands in the broth. One of the biggest problems that I see with moral relativity, that's just difficult to say sometimes, is the fact that you have removed God from the equation. As Christians, we have the Bible, and the Bible is our standard. The Bible is our measuring stick. Our reed is what it would have been called back then. When we look at the Bible, we have a very clear outline of morality. However, even apart from the Bible, and I'm actually going to use a Bible verse to reference this, but even apart from the Bible, we as humans have innate within us an understanding of right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15, it says, "For when the Gentiles which have not the law do by nature the things contained in the law, these, having not the law, are a law unto themselves, which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts, the meanwhile, accusing or else excusing one another." Breaking that down, we all have a conscience. We all understand innately, from the time that we are conceived in our mother's wombs, we are starting to learn those laws of nature. We are starting to understand what is right and wrong. The conscience within us tells us it's wrong to take a life. That is something that is innate within every single human being, to understand it is wrong to take a life.
Yeah.
You have to actively, I'm going to use the word brainwash, actively brainwash someone to not believe taking life is wrong. Yes, I understand there are outlying circumstances of psychopathy and people who have those mental disorders. Obviously, that is going to exist. But as a general rule, that is not the norm. And, you have this basic understanding of, well, maybe I shouldn't just go up and punch somebody for no good reason. Like, that's something that's innate within you. There are objective standards. Everyone has a little bit of pain within them when they see a child being hurt, you know, it's objective.
Yeah.
No matter how much groupthink you want to put out there and say, well, the group decides that it is okay for a child to be hurt. I'm sorry. It's innate within you to not be okay with that. And there are so many things in our society right now that people are trying to push this, well, it's my truth. And that is moral relativity. And it cannot exist within a healthy, functioning society. It will inevitably break down and cause chaos.
So going back to, you know, who really started to push this, you know, it was Protagoras and you know, mainly in ancient Greece.
Right.
But what's interesting is on the other side of those sophists was Socrates, who I talked about before, who did have moral absolutes and everything, but a more, I would say, a closer or more modern figure, who is actually called the father, crowned the father of the Enlightenment, like the Enlightenment age during the 1700s. David Hume. David Hume actually got a lot of his influence from a bishop, but he was an atheist. David Hume was an atheist. He didn't believe in God. Oh, that's actually something that I wanted to read real quick. Let's see. So one of his quotes is, Epicurus's old questions are still unanswered. Is he God, willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he is impotent. Is he able, but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence evil? So it's a fallacious argument. I'm going to use that word again, but because he doesn't understand, first off, like the basic nature of God the way we understand it, and the way we, you know, the Bible teaches, because he is putting tags on God that he, first off, he recognizes evil.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to recognize evil, you have to recognize good. And in order to recognize good, you have to have some kind of standard.
Right.
So when you follow it out to its logical ends, it really falls short. And the thing is that's so frustrating, is that, and if you're an atheist, that's fine. I hope you get good stuff from this channel. But it's really becoming, ask yourself that question. Why do we have morals if there is no creator, if there is no God? Because we do live in a universe of a cause and effect law.
Right.
So that's like one of the basic laws that God created the universe with.
And because everything is cause and effect, you have to have an uncaused cause.
Right.
If you bring it all the way back, there has to be something that was uncaused.
And if you're an atheist, you probably or most likely believe in evolution.
Right.
And evolution,
it's pretty weak, extremely weak.
We could talk about that all night long.
It's a different topic
for different stuff. But the thing, but they point out to the Big Bang. Well, what made the Big Bang? Like what? Or they point out to this, like, well, the universe came out of this soup, like bowl of soup. Who created the bowl of soup? Where did that come from? It always begs the question. But the thing is so the David Hume's argument with he recognizes evil, which then you'd have to recognize good, and basically saying that, well, God is, if he's willing but not able to prevent evil, then he's useless, basically.
Right.
But if he is willing and able, then he's malevolent. Or I'm sorry, that was whence evil.
Yeah.
Because, but if he was able
and not willing, then he's malevolent.
Right. Then he's malevolent. But that's not.
It's taking away choice.
Right.
And choice love cannot exist without choice.
Right. And God created us with free will. But he did not create us with the freedom to escape the consequences of our decisions. And nowadays you're seeing this philosophy of godlessness taking over our culture, and we're reaping the consequences of it. And they always want to escape. We can take this back to the let's just get right into a controversial topic: abortion. It was your decision for the 1.2% that and that were raped, let's say, and they got pregnant that way. That is not the main argument for pro-choice individuals. They argue that, well, the women should have a choice, and blah 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 blah. Well, you've seen how that argument has started to
snowball.
Yeah, snowball, or even morph into completely something different. Like, to now, they are actually admitting, yes, it is a baby. Yes, it is out of the womb. Yes, I had it 2-3 weeks ago, but I still want to abort it. It's horrible, but it's escaping the consequences of your decisions, which God had already set a moral standard for. Sex was for marriage. Sex was only for marriage. And you having sex outside of marriage has guess what sex does? It has the consequence of possibly having children. So it's they're trying to they're first off, they're punishing another individual for the choices that they made.
And that baby didn't do anything wrong.
And they're trying to escape the consequences of their own decisions, which you can't do. So anyway, but that's more or less what at the core belief of this moral relativism philosophy is escaping the consequences of your decisions. Because as soon as you have a moral absolute, all of a sudden you're responsible.
Right.
All of a sudden you have to take responsibility for your own standards, for the way you act, for the way you walk, for everything. And that's just not good enough for some people. Some people have to lie to themselves, and the Bible says it. The fool said in his heart, there is no God. So the fact that we do have a conscience, the fact that, and that's something that everyone can agree on for the most part.
And evolution can't explain a conscience.
Well, no, and the other thing is that atheism in general is a fairly new. It's a fairly new philosophy. It's a fairly new
belief system.
It's always been.
It may not have been that everyone throughout history worshipped the God of the Bible.
Right.
But, I mean, you had the goddess Diana, you had crazy stuff, you had the Baphomet, Sophia, which you had these different deities that were worshipped all throughout history, but it was never believed until very recently that there was no God, that humans were the pinnacle of existence. That's actually a very new belief system.
Yeah, it's fairly new, because it's innate within us to worship a deity. And it is something that God created us with, that desire to. God is the one to fill that gap, fill that hole.
Someone, I can't remember who it was, but somebody smarter than me said, everyone is born with a God-shaped hole in their heart, and their whole life they are trying to find something to fill that hole. And unless they find God to fill that hole, they're going to try to to put all kinds of other stuff in there. And I think what we're seeing today in our society is that people are trying to fill the God-sized hole in their heart with more of themselves.
Yes.
They're trying to just worship themselves.
Yeah, it's a very selfish. Yeah, it's very selfish philosophy. And but that's sin nature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sin nature is to look out for self, because it is the opposite of love.
Right.
It is the opposite of what God's nature is, which sin is the opposite of God's nature.
All right. And to have that belief system, you have to be a moral relativist.
Yes.
You can't believe in moral absolutes, because if you want to worship yourself, you're going to have to say, well, whatever I want is what's right.
Right. Yeah. Well, and what's funny too is that it nowadays you have these. They have gone outside the spectrum of good and evil. That philosophy goes outside the spectrum of good and evil, because moral relativism defines good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always an order to things, and that order, it always ends up correcting itself, because it's a basic law. Again, I'm going to come back to the basic laws of universe. It's cause and effect, and we have a basic law of the universe has an order to things. You can't. We have science. We have, cause and effect.
We are firm believers in true science here.
Yeah. So that philosophy, even on a mental level, breaks down very quickly, and that philosophy doesn't last long when it's actually pushed on a society. Yes, the society might crumble because of that philosophy, which we're seeing right now.
It turns everything into chaos.
But it doesn't last.
Right.
It doesn't
chaos
last.
Can't last.
No, it doesn't last. But what's scarier is that what usually takes place of that chaos is something that is it's basically more man worship, but it's in the form of treating God as a man.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, man as a god. Apologies, man as a god. Again, putting man in that stage or in that hole where God should be.
Yeah.
Usually looks like the societal, I don't know, what would you call it? Authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Is usually what, if you don't have good Christian people, if you don't have good moral people in society to fight back, that society will most likely turn into some type of authoritarianism.
Because when a society breaks down into utter chaos, the only way to bring order back is by authoritarianism. If you do not have
in a godless
society, yes. If you do not have that absolute standard of morality, it will be chaos. But society cannot function in chaos. So there has to be some force to bring everything back into order.
Yeah.
And that force usually comes in the form of authoritarianism.
So so where were we?
I don't know. Where are we, y'all?
So no, but we have to have a standard.
Yes.
At the end of the day, there has to be a standard. Society can't. Oh, this is the point I wanted to make. I am going to challenge conservatives and Christians now to stop being. I want to say this carefully. Stop being tolerant. Stop being tolerant of evil or wrong. It's not, it's a very libertarian viewpoint to say, oh, well, as long as you're, doing your thing and not affecting me, then you can do whatever you want. But that's a slippery slope.
Yeah. I think we're actually seeing the end of the slippery slope.
We absolutely
right
are
now.
seeing this
Pretty sure
end of the slippery slope. No, we are. It's up to now, for many years, it's been like, well, look, I just want to do my thing. I want to have, like, I want to have my guns. I want to have, uh, my, property. I want to do whatever on my property. It's a very conservative viewpoint. Like, just do what you want on your own turf. Believe what you want. As long as it doesn't affect society.
Your freedom extends to the tip of my nose.
And what we've done is, even though I believe that conservative Christian values, even if you're not a Christian yourself, conservative Christian values, what the country was founded on. Like, how many people actually believe in that versus how many, I'm going to say our American value, our basic American values, what the country is founded on. The people that believe in those things, I believe if you put them all on a scale, they would outweigh the people that don't believe in basic American values. However, we as Christians and conservatives have said, you guys can do what you want for so many years, just leave us alone, to the point where they have gotten so progressive, and we have let it fester. We've let it fester and fester, and to the point where now they're like, okay, yeah, we are going to do what we want, and we're going to change the government. We're going to change the law. We're going to change what this country was founded on in the first place, because we let it go. And it's our fault. We've let it go this far because we have told people, do what you want. Do what you want as long as it doesn't affect me. Well, now it's starting to affect us. And yeah, we're trying to push back on it, but we should never have tolerated it in the first place. You can call wrong. You can be blunt with people, because if you're a Christian conservative, you can see how much damage that tolerant attitude is doing to our society, because we've let it grow to the point to now where it's bleeding over. So I would challenge you to not get up in people's faces, not yell at them, not, be tactful and respectful as much as possible with people, but start, I think that song just came to my mind. It's Michael Jackson song, The Man in the Mirror. Yeah, I'm going to start with The Man in the Mirror. Challenge yourself, and start making changes in your own life, and it will bleed over if there are genuine changes. But be strong, be firm on your beliefs. Don't back down. Don't be like, well, look, you want to cut yourself and mutilate yourself because you don't think you're in the right body, or you're not the right gender, or whatever, then go ahead. I understand that outlook to a degree, but I think it's doing damage. I used to believe that way.
It is doing damage.
I used to believe that way.
It absolutely is doing damage.
And I think it's time to start reversing our outlook on being so libertarian about these issues, because society is failing. Society is taking the brunt of our lack of action, lack of speaking out, and I don't think that's okay. And I think it's reaching a point now to where it's nigh it's nigh irreparable.
Yeah. And that's a scary situation to be in. When you look around and you see so many people subscribing to moral relativity, and just, I mean, it's honestly even a lot of Christians. They are being tolerant of all these different standards of morality. And we cannot continue to do that. There is moral absolute. There are standards that everyone knows. It takes brainwashing to believe the things that are being promulgated in our society right now.
And you have to admit, even if you're not a Christian, if you're an atheist, don't believe in God or something else, you have to admit that not having some type of moral standard degenerates society, and we have to have those standards.
Yeah, reality is being twisted right now by people who have no mindful basis in absolute standards. And we are seeing the degenerative outcome of that. And it's being foisted on us, and it has been for several years. But I mean, even just in our adult lives, we are not very old. We've been married going on 10 years. And even just in the time that we've been married, society has changed drastically.
Very dramatically.
For the worst.
Yes.
Worse. And it is scary, but at the same time, it should be a call to action to us.
Yeah.
We need to. I want to pick my words carefully because I know YouTube like scours the videos, and we're fully expecting YouTube to take some of our videos down. But we need to push back against all of this moral relativism. And we need to say, no. There is an absolute standard of truth. There is an absolute standard of morality. It's okay to say that things are wrong. All right? You know, we need to renormalize normal.
Yeah.
It needs to be normal to believe that wrong things are wrong.
Yeah.
We should not be scared to say it is wrong to trans the kids. We shouldn't be scared to say that because guess what? It's wrong.
Yeah. And thankfully, there are a lot of parents and a lot of people who are actually standing up to this, especially, you know, I saw that video over in California of parents storming a drag queen story hour. And, you know, now they're being charged with hate crime, even though there was no violence. They're being charged with hate crimes for what? I have no idea. Because they were calling the transgender person who is doing the story hour pedophile, which when you dress provocatively in sexual ways in front of children, I mean,
at the very least, it's child abuse. Perhaps the person was not necessarily pedo, but it's at least grooming.
But man, it's like right on that line, and you should stay away as far away from that line.
Right, that is not a line you want to
humanly possible. But so to end the segment with a quote from not even a Christian man, by the way, but one of my favorite philosophers, talking about it earlier, Socrates. A system of morality which is based on relative emotional values is mere illusion. A thoroughly vulgar conception which has nothing sound in it and nothing true. And isn't that
preach, Socrates?
Yeah, I know, right? The thing is, but that's when you have moral relativism, it degenerates and degenerates. It just keeps snowballing and snowballing until now actual reality is being questioned. You know, people are, and it goes far beyond the transgender debate. A man thinking he's a woman or a woman thinking she's a man or whatever, to the point now where it's like kids who are going to school acting like dogs and cats, and we're actually entertaining and having to address them as dogs or I mean, this is something that's literally happening in our schools. Okay. It's crazy.
Kids are meowing
Come
and
on, people.
barking at their teachers, and their teachers are being told, you have to go along with it. That's their self-identity. That's their self-expression. Come on, are you kidding me? Teach these kids reality.
Yeah. So imagination is always good.
Yes.
But
foster imagination, but bring them back to reality when it's time to read, write, and do arithmetic.
Imagination is something that it's a gift that God gave us, but now people are abusing it, and not grounded in reality at all. And
which that's something that the devil loves to do, is take something pure and holy that God has given to us as a gift and warp it and twist it into something unrecognizable from the pure and holy thing that God has given us.
Yeah. So,
but again, that's an entirely different segment.
Yeah. So hopefully this helped you guys. And if you guys have any suggestions or like questions on what to do during, you know, situations where let's say you have friends that are you know, apologetic toward the transgender debate or something like that, then, you know, give us a shout. Ask some questions on how you guys would handle it and how we would handle it, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, please leave us comments.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts on this video. Tell us some ideas of what topics you would like us to discuss.
Yeah, we're looking for some feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and thank you for bearing with us and watching all this. So we appreciate you, and we're praying for you.
Have a good night.
Bye.